From the WATE.Digital Center, answering your legal questions. This is X. Now, here's Lori Tucker and attorney Greg Isaacs.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us live here on WATE.com. I'm Lori Tucker along with Greg Isaacs. It's good to see you today.
Lori, it's good to be here.
We're going to take a look at the case of the green cards and the Columbia University graduate. And to bring you up to date, Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian activist, graduate of Columbia University, he got his master's there, was arrested over the weekend by federal immigration officials. A judge in New York has temporarily blocked authorities from deporting Khalil, and another hearing, Greg, just took place today. You see protesters outside the Manhattan courthouse, huge rally in support of this young man. Let's talk about how we got to this point.
Well, back when the Palestinian occupation first began, a lot of universities across the country had protest rallies in support on both sides of the issue. At Columbia, Mahmoud Khalil was designated a spokesman for a student group that had occupied a number of the campus facilities and buildings. As that drama unfolded and law enforcement was called to the Columbian campus, etc. So where we are now is the Trump administration has said they view anyone who is openly supporting Hamas, directly or indirectly, as someone that is aiding and abetting terrorism. And accordingly, if you have a permanent resident card, commonly known as a green card, under certain scenarios, criminal arrests, etc., you could be deportable. There has to be due process. But they've said under the provision that says you cannot aid and abet terrorism, that they are going to seek to deport people like Khalil. And this is the first one, and it's starting out in a very high-profile manner.
Yeah, it certainly is. And his attorney said late this afternoon, detention has nothing to do with security. It's about repression. Let's hear what two of his attorneys actually had to say.
Every day that Mahmoud spends in detention in Louisiana is a day too long. We and he fully intend to vindicate not just his First Amendment rights, but those of all Americans, frankly, and all lawful permanent residents, and anybody who wants to speak out.
The government takes the position that because the Secretary of State finds his dissent unacceptable or contrary to U.S. foreign policy, he can be deported. As Ramsey suggested, it's largely unprecedented, save for ugly historical precedents, including in the Red Scare and McCarthyism. That's what we're talking about.
Powerful statements right there.
Pretty powerful statements, and you know what you see is a lot of major political and constitutional principles colliding. And one, you have someone's First Amendment right to peacefully assemble, to express your views. And this country has a rich history, whether you like it or not, to allow certain groups to express their beliefs.
And Khalil and his supporters say, listen, this is a Palestinian activist being singled out for his public support of his own people.
Right. Well, the Klan has got protection in certain instances under the First Amendment. Groups that have heckled at military funerals, servicemen and their families, people that have burned flags. But this one's different. And in order to circumvent the First Amendment, Secretary Rubio and the Department of Homeland Security have said this type of speech and these type of rallies are designed to support Hamas. And Hamas has been designated as a terrorist organization, and that's the leverage they're using to seek to deport these individuals.
What would happen next? Because I understand these deportation cases can, and under certain law, must take place within 90 days. Is that right?
There's a lot of procedural hoops, and typically ICE gets involved. You have certain ICE courts, Louisiana, where Kahil is being held is one of the most prevalent in this region. But it's interesting, and most people, as this debate has unfolded, it's interesting they really don't know the significance of what a green card or a permanent resident card is.
Let's kind of go over those basics then. Basically, to start off, what is a green card for those who don't know?
A green card, if you're someone who marries a U.S. citizen, such as Khalil, if you're somebody that has a unique trade skill, if you're an academic, if you are an international journalist, if you are a religious worker or volunteer, you can qualify for a permanent residence card. And that means you can stay here indefinitely. But, Lori, importantly, you are not a United States citizen.
There is a definite distinction between the two, and let's talk about what can happen to make you lose that green card legally.
Well, legally, you can be deported if you are charged or convicted of certain crimes, aggravated felonies, typically crimes that carry more than 1 year in jail, any crime dealing with a firearm or drugs, domestic violence. If you fail to report a change in your residency to immigration, if you are engaged in a fraudulent marriage, are all scenarios where your green card could be revoked.
Speaking of marriage, Khalil is married. His wife is 8 months pregnant. How does that play into all of this?
Well, it plays into it because it's one of the criteria for having your PRC, your permanent residence card, and she is a U.S. citizen by all wire reports. But it's very interesting, and the Trump administration is not backing down. They're not pumping the brakes. They're pumping the gas, and they're saying through Secretary Rubio, this is the beginning of the beginning, and anyone on a college campus that seeks to openly support Hamas, and you have a green card or a work visa, they are going to seek to deport you.
So what is it going to take to get a deportation if on one hand Khalil and his attorneys and his supporters are saying, no, he's not supporting Hamas, he's supporting Palestine?
Well, that's why we have judges and hearings and due process
in the United States.
So what happens next is there was an injunction filed in district court in Manhattan. The judge granted that. Actually, it was a writ of habeas corpus, which you're entitled to under some deportation scenarios. And the judge basically wanted to get the facts before they rushed him through this ICE deportation gauntlet. So what you're going to see in these cases, they're going to be entitled to a hearing, but the hearing is going to be predicated on whether their words, their actions, and conduct actually constituted support for a terrorist organization. So, this is one of those really unique situations in our legal system, in our country, under our Constitution, where words, instead of falling back on our blanket protections, even President Trump has said, the First Amendment, the internet is kind of the town square where we air our grievances and talk about our redress to the government. And now this is going to create, I think, a tremendous chilling effect if you are here on a PRC and you have expressed any support for Hamas.
Let's end this on a local note, if you will, because we were talking about the 60 universities that are being targeted that have had such rallies on campus. UT Knoxville is one of them.
Very interesting, because what the Department of Homeland Security has said, if you are a university and you're receiving federal funding and you allow these rallies in support of Hamas, then you are engaged in violation of Title VI, in a violation of anti-Semitic civil rights violations. And so what they're doing is investigating universities that were permitting those rallies to take place, and they have identified and targeted 60 universities throughout the United States, including the University of Tennessee.
We'll be watching.
We will be watching.
Let's talk more at 5:30, shall we?
Let's do.
Thank you for being with us.